Friends, these days we are celebrating the Somnath Swabhiman Parv. So let's understand what this Parv or festival is about. But before we start, let's talk about what's the history of Somnath Temple, where is it located, and whom is it dedicated to. So Somnath Temple is dedicated to Lord Shiv because he is the Nath or Lord of Som or Chandra. Okay, so that's the meaning of Somnath. And the Somnath temple is located in the Verawal district, which I believe is now called as the Gir Somnath district in the Saurashtra region of Gujarat. Earlier, Gujarat was called as Patan, not Gujarat, but as Patan. Now, when we talk about the history of Somnath temple, there are a couple of Hindu texts like Mahabharat and Bhagwat Puran who talk about Prabhas Teerth, but they don't mention Somnath. So apparently this Somnath temple or Teerth was well known during the Mahabharat times and the Bhagwat Puran times. But the word Somnath actually came in history in the 10th century AD. But let me first take you to the history of the Somnath temple. It is said that the first temple dedicated to Somnath was made by Chandra Devta or Som or Moon. After he had committed a heinous crime, he was cursed by his father-in-law, and to relieve that curse, Som or Chandradev took bath in the Saraswati river, which was emptying into the Arabian Sea. And after taking the bath, then he made a fantastic temple dedicated to Somnath or Lord Shiv. Some people also say, there are some historians or there are some religious scholars who also say that Somnath temple was also built by Ravan. Yes, the same Ravan who's mentioned in Ramayana. But let's be clear, initially the area around Somnath was called Prabhas Teerth. Okay. Somewhere in the 10th century AD, Mulraj Solanki, one of the earlier rulers of the Solanki dynasty of Gujarat, rebuilt the Somnath temple, and he says that he pulled down an existing wooden temple and put up a stone temple in that place, and then put up several jewels, thousands of jewels in that particular temple for Lord Shiva. So that we are talking about the 10th century AD. On January 6, 1026 AD, at least this is what the contemporary historians say, Mahmud Ghazni invaded Somnath. He came all the way from Afghanistan, Ghazni, traveled through Punjab, Sindh, probably parts of Rajasthan, and then Gujarat, Kutch and all, and then he ultimately descended upon Somnath. His army defeated Hindus and then ultimately razed the Somnath temple and carried away the idol of Somnath Murti, as well as thousands of jewels, immense wealth from this temple back to Ghazni. A few years later, this temple was again reconstructed by the later Solanki rulers. Bhimdev I of the Solanki dynasty reconstructed this temple 12 years later, I think by 1038 AD. And in the 12th century, Kumarpal, one of the more illustrious kings of the Solanki dynasty, rebuilt this temple in a better form. But over the next few hundred years, the Somnath temple was again and again destroyed by Muslims. First by Alauddin Khilji, who came to the throne of Delhi in 1296 or 1297 AD. After Alauddin Khilji, this temple was rebuilt again by a Hindu king. But somewhere in the 14th century, I believe, this temple was torn down by the founder of the Gujarat Sultanate, Zafar Khan. Then it was rebuilt again by the local Hindus. Again, the Somnath temple was plundered and destroyed by Mahmud Shah Begra of Gujarat, and it was again rebuilt by Hindus. Then in the 18th century, Aurangzeb decided to plunder this temple again, break this temple again, and make a mosque over it. In the 19th century or the 18th century, travelers to this particular temple, they saw a mosque in place of the Somnath Temple. And obviously Hindus were pained at this site, because this Somnath Temple is one of the 12 jyotirlingas in Hinduism. So in the 20th century, in December 1947, the Nehru cabinet resolved to rebuild Somnath Temple, and under Sardar Patel's leadership, this modern Somnath Temple came up in the 1950s. And the temple that we see today is the modern Somnath Temple, which was erected under the leadership of Sardar Patel. But let's not forget that it was the Nehru cabinet's decision that led to the reconstruction of this temple. You can read more about this decision, you can read more about this process in K.M. Munshi's book, From Pilgrimage to Freedom. This is the name of his book. It's a huge book, contains more than 600 pages, but you can read about this decision and the process and the various correspondences that went on between Nehru and K.M. Munshi for a better perspective. So that's a short bit about Somnath Temple. Its history, its 1,000-year-old history. Actually, this temple is much more than 1,000 years, but for academic sake, we are compressing it to 1,000 years. I hope you liked this video, and you can refer to it for your civil services preparations. Bye-bye.